punch it down. This is my children's favorite part, because they like to just push it down. And then I just sort of knead it a little bit. You know, I don't knead a whole lot, and I know that some people think that you should knead for several minutes or a certain amount of time, and I don't do that. I knead until it feels right. So, dust my surface. Now, because this is one batch, makes 3 challahs, I'm going to empty this out, and I'm going to separate this into three balls of dough. I roll it a bit. I find that when I roll it into a log like this, I'm able to better judge how big each piece is. And each roll, each dough ball is about 1.6 ounces, 1 pound 6 ounces. So cut it, 1 5 1/4. This is going to be a little bit less. 1 5 1/4. 1/8, so I'll cut that. Make it 1 5 1/8. That's about right. Math is not my strongest subject, so I just sort of guesstimate. So here, now I've got my 3 balls, and what I do is I'll put these in there. So if I'm going to do a request was a round challah. Now, when I was making my apple honey challahs, I had to stuff the apples and the honey inside. So what I was telling some of our friends earlier, instead of, I tried so many different ways of trying to get the honey into the bread. I wanted you to be able to take a bite of the bread and have just honey ooze out, but I found that was almost impossible to do because either the honey would be absorbed by the bread and you wouldn't get that bite that I was really looking for, or it would ooze out everywhere and it was a mess and nobody really liked that. So what I did instead is I substituted honey for sugar in my recipe, and then instead of doing an egg wash on top, I did a honey wash on top, which really gave it the kick that I was looking for. And then I sprinkled a little bit of salt on top because salt will kind of really bring out a flavor. So, okay, so you've got your ball of dough, and then you're going to want to cut it in half, kind of measure. I like to weigh them so I know what I'm dealing with. 10 1/2. 10 3/4, that'll work. And then I cut again, so I'm going to have 4 balls, 5 1/8, 5 1/2. It doesn't have to be perfect. 5 1/4, 5 1/4. Okay, so you've got your 4 balls of dough. So then what you do is you just roll. Not too thin, because if you're going to be stuffing this, then you're going to want to be able to spread it out a little bit. So here, I'm going to start off, I do 1, about that long. And this is, we're going to be doing a round challah today. And we're going to pretend that it's stuffed. I'm going to show you how I would stuff it, but we're going to pretend that it's stuffed. Thank you. 2. Yeah.
Sarah, do you consider that additional kneading when you're rolling it out? Is that, because you said you knead it until you can tell it feels right? But what does feels right feel like? That's the hardest part for me.
Soft like a baby's tushy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's an excellent description.
Well, you know, my friend Amy from camp, that's how she described it to me, and I was like, what is she talking about? And she was right. Pretty much that's what it is. And it was just practice. I found that the more I kind of practiced with it, the more I was like, you know, this isn't the right consistency. What can I do to make it the right consistency? Maybe if I need it a little bit more, maybe if I need it a little bit less. So it was several attempts. So, okay, so I have my 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I do now, this is how you stuff a challah to make it the swirl like you see, okay? You have your 2 pieces, 2 at a time, and I press gently to give it a little bit of a flattening effect ahead of time, because if I use my rolling pin on it before I flattened it with my fingers, it kind of goes all over the place. And this took me a little while to figure out how to do this, several attempts. So I put a little flour on top, take my rolling pin, does not have to be a heavy-duty one like this, is just the one that we got for our wedding. So this is the one we have. And I roll gently, not too hard, just a little bit, and I spread it out left and right. I might go back again. And then what I do, and this is the secret. I'm going to roll it out over wide, but I'm not going to roll out the entire thing wide. I'm going to start from the middle and move out. I want this one edge to still be thick. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm essentially creating like a lip. So I'll roll it out on that side, and then I'll come and I'll do the same thing on this side. Okay? Just like so. Okay? So you have, try and pick it up and show you, this sort of shape, but it's thinner on the bottom and thicker on the top. So once that's done, and when you're working on a regular surface, it'll be a little bit easier. Once that's done, you take whatever you want to fill it with, whether it's apples or cinnamon or chocolate chips or butterscotch chips or cream cheese, whatever you want, because you can put cream cheese in here too. You line the cream cheese down. You very carefully pick up one side and bring it over, and you pat it down so it's like that.
It's like a pocket on it.
Like a pocket. So you bring it over, and you bring it over very delicately, and it takes a little bit of time to practice, and when you get to the end, I'll show you. When you get to the end, you're going to cup it around, and then you're just going to use your fingers to push and roll to close it back up. And then what you're left with is like a snake, like so. Now, ideally, this would be filled with something. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, pretending, of course, that there's something delicious in there, other than the challah. Roll, 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 roll. Bless you. And then 2. Now, if you finish with one, and you want them to be about the same size each. If it's not, just give it a little tug, just a gentle tug. And then you go back and you do the same thing with your next 2. Bring them over. Now, sometimes if your dough has been sitting there for a minute and resting, it will sort of contract a little bit, so you might just need to give it a gentle roll to get it back to the length that you want. Pat, 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 pat. I've also found that different seasons cause my dough to do different things. Wintertime, my bread does not stay as moist, as long as it does in the summertime. I used to be able to bake my bread 3 days before I was selling it, and now I can't do that in the winter time. I have to pretty much do it like the day before.
Because it's so dry out?
Because it dries out a lot quicker. So do the same thing here. Roll, roll, roll.
Now, if you were making this and you wanted to freeze them,
yes,
they'll keep their moisture if you put it right in the freezer, right?
The only difference that I found that with my traditionals, they, here you go, yeah, sorry. I found that with my traditionals, I'm used to that, so used to that, they freeze beautifully. And I can take them out and they taste just like they did right when they came out of the oven. With my cinnamon swirls, I can freeze them. And I take them out, and they taste like they did when I took them out of the oven. The only difference is that they don't have the crunch, the caramel kind of crunch from the brown sugar. It's not crunchy anymore. That's the only difference that I found.
Now,
You
when
let them cool before you
Yes.
freeze them? Okay.
I do. Now when I'm baking here, I'm on a time crunch, and I can't. So I have to pop them right in the freezer. But ideally, I want them to cool completely before I freeze them. But I don't really freeze them because I sell them. This is the only place that I freeze them.
Okay.
a question about freezing. Do you wrap them in cellophane, saran wrap, or do you put them in freezer bags, or when you put them?
I use these bags, which you can get from
sort of like the grocery bags, similar.
Well, no, I get these from PFG, Performance Food Group. They're called fish bags, because it's what a lot of places keep their fish in when they're like restaurants. But they're a nice size, and that's what I freeze them in.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe certain types of bags might hold the moisture in them.
It might. I have not.
You haven't tried anything
that
else?
Yet, but when
Yeah.
I do freeze them and I take my challah out, I can take it frozen from the freezer and wrap it in tin foil and pop it in the oven, and it comes out like I had just baked it. So now I will show you how to do round challah. So you've got your 4 ropes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ideally, if it's stuffed, you want to make sure that there's no, the seams are not coming out, and you could just go ahead and pinch them. So you put 2 side by side, just like this. 1, 2, and you take your other 2, 1, 2, and you bring them down in front. Make sure they're measured. And if you hold them on each side, and you bring them up, it's right in the middle. Pick it up, turn, lay it across. That way you know your measurement is pretty much right on, okay? Now you're going to do a crisscross technique. One of them is going to go under the bottom, and the other one's going under the bottom. Feel free to step up if you want to come
Reminds me
along.
of doing a lattice pop.
Okay? Do you see how I did that? Do you want me to do it again?
Video? Want to do a video with that?
So, you've got your 2 challah, your 4 pieces. 1, 2. 1. Okay, you're making almost like a
lattice
crisscross.
in a way.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Okay, and now begins this process. There's one that's obviously on the bottom and one that's clearly on the top. All the way around. This one's on the bottom, this one is over. This one's under, and this one is an over one. You see what I'm saying? So the one that's on the bottom goes over the one that's on the top. And you move to the other side. The one that's on the bottom goes over. You can kind of keep these together. This one goes over, and then this one goes over, okay? So now you've got that. So now you're going to do it again. But instead, this one isn't going over because this one's already over. So you're going to go backwards. Over, 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 over. And then you're going to do it again. Over, 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 over. Now you're going to get to a point where the end pieces are getting kind of small, and you can do one of 2 things. You can either pinch your little pieces together happily, and then you can tuck them underneath and call it a day. Okay? It's a beautiful looking little round challah. Or, do another thing I learned. Pinch your little pieces together and bring them up in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't be shy. Don't worry about it looking ugly. Take it, roll it over.
Oh, wow.
And then you have that. And then you take your baking sheet, whatever you're going to put it on, and there it is. And what's nice about it when you do it like that, it's going to bake rounded on the top. Whereas if you did it the other way and didn't bring it up and tucked them underneath instead, it's going to be more of a flat. It's really whatever you're looking for.
That is so cool, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that is one method. Now, a lot of people have trouble doing a braid more than a 3 or a 4 braid. So I'm going to show you all how to do a 5 braid challah. Okay?